Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez, behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time! Phyrexia, All Will Be One, had some intense moments, but none generated conversation quite like the battle for the Silex in the story's final chapter. I wanted to take a closer look at what happens here and why, because it seems to be a spotlight event that is going to have massive repercussions for Magic, starting with March of the Machine and possibly extending far, far into the game's future. Before we ponder what's in store, let me invite you to check out Into the AM, the sponsor of this video. They've got graphic tees that will blow your mind, like a Silex, with designs that pair nicely with all your favorite Magic characters and locations. High-quality materials and tailored fit styling make these the most comfortable and flattering shirts you'll ever own. And they're even available in bundles, which are basically booster packs for your wardrobe. Save 10% with promo code MAGICARCANUM, and that always stacks with their sales and bundles, so there's never a bad time to look so good. Check them out using the link down below, and you'll support the channel while grabbing your graphic tees, basics, jackets, hat, hoodies, and pants. Everything you need to stay inspired. Thanks again to Into the AM for sponsoring this video. Alright, now let's see if we can figure out why the Silex wound up where it did. First, let's review the original plan and the initial sequence of events which led to that plan being challenged. For clarity, I'm going to refer to all of the Planeswalkers as being the Gatewatch, even though I know not all of them swore the oath or are actually members of the team. I am also going to refer to them as the good guys, even though I know some of you are rooting for the Phyrexians. With that said, the Gatewatch built their plan upon Karn's strategy of using a Silex to sterilize the plane of Mirrodin and hopefully wipe the Phyrexians out once and for all. A long time ago, the Planeswalker Urza used what I'm calling the original Silex to halt the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria. This came at a great cost. Activating the artifact unleashed a massive wave of destructive power, fueled by Urza's plea to, quote, wipe the land clear and bring the ending. On Dominaria, this immediately killed large armies on both sides of the conflict, and ushered in an ice age that would impact or end life for civilians all over the plane. Eventually, Dominaria was able to recover and rebuild, but it took the intervention of another Planeswalker and her World Spell to make that possible. These earlier events establish that a Silex is no joke. They can possess incredible destructive power, and the card Urza's Silex, the one used to end the Brothers' War, lives up to that reputation. It can wipe the land clear, literally leaving behind only the land itself. And that is what Karn wanted to do on Mirrodin. He dug up the original Silex on Dominaria and intended to take it to his self-made plane and use it to purge the Phyrexian threat. I don't think he physically modified the bowl at all. Instead, it seems to somewhat react to the will of the user, and since Karn was so keen on stopping the Phyrexians specifically, his Silex card has a static ability that prevents their use of Phyrexian mana. Again, for clarity's sake, the true original Silex was actually the Golgothian Silex, but this item has been represented in-game by a couple of cards now, based on who's holding it, so I'm just referring to them all as the original Silex. Anyway, Karn made this plan well before the Phyrexians had access to Realmbreaker. He intended to stop them before they found a way off of Mirrodin, but he was captured at the end of the Dominaria United story, and that's where the Gatewatch had to take over. The Gatewatch concluded that a Silex strike would still be the best way to contain the Phyrexians. It is the most powerful offensive weapon they have access to, and that's thanks to Saheeli, who was able to create a replica based on Karn's detailed notes. That would be the Filigree Silex, which isn't quite as strong as its mythic rarity cousins, but is still a supremely powerful magical artifact in its own right. The Gatewatch arrived on Mirrodin, new Phyrexia, with the goal of using this replica Silex to destroy the Phyrexians and their Realmbreaker tree before they could use it to escape into the multiverse. That last part is important. Karn's plan and the Gatewatch plan both hinge on eliminating the Phyrexians before they can get themselves off the plane. Karn and the Gatewatch know that using the Silex on new Phyrexia will be incredibly damaging. They are expecting to kill all the Phyrexians and quite likely all of the Mirrans who still live there too. Previously, the Phyrexians only inhabited the plane's core, but now that they have taken control of the whole thing, there's really no way to hit just them without also hitting the rebels at the same time. In the story, Melira and Koth confront Jace about this, and he can only promise them using the Silex probably won't destroy the entire plane, which seems accurate because the last time it was used, the land itself did survive. But Jace does also admit this Silex has never been tested, and the Phyrexians have modified the plane to suit their own needs, and therefore he cannot guarantee anything will survive the blast. Even so, the group agrees their best course of action is still to take the Silex to the base of the Realmbreaker tree and set it off. So that's what they do. Or try to do. They get most of the way there when they realize they ran out of time. Realmbreaker pierced the blind eternities and connected the Phyrexian invasion army to the multiverse at large. Why is that a problem exactly? Well, it means their original plan has expired. Using the Silex now no longer guarantees the Phyrexians stay contained to this plane. However, Jace and the talking head of Karn decide to continue with that plan anyway. Jace takes the Silex to the roots of Realmbreaker and prepares to set it off when he is stopped by Kaya. Now, in the story, leading up to this moment, we get a lot of internal monologue from Kaya. For several paragraphs, we, the reader, are in her head as she decides the Phyrexians are definitely bad and certainly must be stopped. She feels terrible for how Mirrodin has suffered at their hands already, and she laments the fact that the plan they were going to carry out would likely further harm the innocent people of this plane. She is frustrated. She has not had time to mourn the loss of her friends and Planeswalker allies like Vraska and Nahiri, who have already fallen, and she comes to the haunting realization that if she dies here, there will likely be nobody left in the multiverse to mourn her. She realizes she won't even leave a ghost behind, which she finds ironic given that she has made a career out of assassinating ghosts. All of this paints a picture of someone who is acting very thoughtfully. Kaya has proven herself in the past to be a capable and clever character who understands risks and has survived difficult experiences by knowing her limits. She's no stranger to having a plan, but also knows how to adapt on the fly, or walk away entirely when the situation calls for it. As for why she's having all these thoughts now, well, she's been fighting for her life literally the entire time she's been on this plane. This is the first opportunity she's had for self-reflection and to take stock of what they're about to do. Which brings us to her conflict with Jace. Jace believes setting off the Silex still makes sense, even though the window to safely do so has already closed. And when I say safely, I mean with only risking everything on Mirrodin. Now that Realmbreaker is connected to other planes, using the Silex here risks them all. The story reminds us that the detonation of the artifact will send out a shockwave of energy as it attempts to carry out the user's wish to make the land clear and bring the ending. The Planeswalkers theorize that this shockwave could travel across the tree and radiate out through the branches, which are now in contact with other planes. This means that the energy would not stay contained to Mirrodin. Indeed, it is possible that using the Silex now would not affect the Phyrexians here at all. What it might do, though, is damage or destroy every connected plane, and there are an uncountable number of them. Kaya realizes using the Silex here no longer risks just Mirrodin, but the entire multiverse, even the blind eternities itself. She reminds Jace that the original Silex had unforeseen consequences on Dominaria, breaking things they didn't know could be broken, including time. What happens when you bring the ending of the blind eternities, where all the planes are connected? That's the very foundation of the multiverse. You mess with that, and you could wipe everything clear everywhere. She tries to explain this to Jace, but he is already dead set on carrying out the plan. And why is that? Well, for starters, he won't have to live with the consequences. Whether it works or not, or kills everyone or not, he's about to become a Phyrexian himself. So for him, it's really all the same. And secondly, in previous stories, we've seen Jace be smart. I'm not denying that. But we've also seen him struggle to be human. He tends to see interactions as a numbers game, and almost all of his relationships have suffered for it. Applying that here, it means Jace is willing to risk all of the other planes in the multiverse on the small chance that this bomb does somehow stop the Phyrexians. He believes the math bears this out. But for all of his intelligence, Jace has never been a great creative thinker. What if there's a plane full of Maliras out there, or another source of Halo, or something even better? Using the Silex now might destroy that world before you got to hear about it. What if the Phyrexians put some sort of shield around their tree? They had something in place to disrupt the Planeswalkers' landing, so they've already demonstrated they knew about this plan and were taking steps to interfere with it. What if using the Silex here just kills all the Planeswalkers and does nothing to the tree? Then who's left to fight the Phyrexians? And what if each plane was able to mount their own defense? The people of Mirrodin have been here for decades. Struggling, yes, but alive. Don't the people of Kaladesh and Ixalan and Tarkir all deserve the same chance? Using the Silex now denies them that opportunity. I mean, the story even tells us Sorin is on Innistrad preparing the plane for trouble. He's got a lot of experience at that. Suppose he had barriers in place that did halt the Phyrexian invasion, and then Jace used the Silex and wiped the land clear anyway. Those deaths wouldn't be on the Phyrexians, they'd be on Jace and Kaito and Kaya, which is why they called for a timeout. The filigree Silex is based on the original one, but it is untested. The Gatewatch collectively had agreed to risk Mirrodin, knowing they were ignorant about the potential level of damage the plane would suffer. But that does not mean that they were willing to risk the entire multiverse the same way. I mean, imagine you saw someone using a gun for the first time and then tried to recreate gunpowder on your own. How confident are you got that mixture just right? There are lots and lots of reasons it is presently unwise to use the Silex. The tree itself may be trapped. The damage done might kill people who would have otherwise survived and beat the Phyrexians. But the real reason Kaya says to stop is because they don't get to decide the fate of the multiverse. They don't even have the right to decide for Mirrodin. That fell to Koth and Malira, who did agree to help once they understood the risks. They were willing to give up their own plane and their own lives to stop the Phyrexians from reaching anywhere else. So Jace is continuing to act as though there is no other way to stop the Phyrexians, but the very existence of Mirrodin already proves him wrong. Kaya tries to stop him because she knows it is unfair and honestly unwise to go ahead with using the Silex at this point. All it does now is close potential doors. It doesn't really stop the Phyrexians. Remember, a Silex was used against them before and they came back, right? So this might be only a temporary solution that causes permanent damage to an uncountable number of planes. An Ice Age fell upon Dominaria because it was an otherwise healthy plane. What happens when the magic of the Silex spreads through Amonkhet or Innistrad, still recovering from the eternal night they just experienced? Kaya knows the Phyrexians have to be stopped, but at this point, she believes they are better off regrouping and looking for another solution, while each plane fights for itself, exactly as Mirrodin has already done for years. And remember, they still have a reserve force of planeswalkers for exactly this situation. So it's not like they didn't have a backup plan in case they failed to reach Realmbreaker in time. They left Liliana, Ren, Chandra, Saheeli, Sorin, Arlen, Huatli, and a whole lot more back on Dominaria and Ravnica. If you use the Sylex now, it would presumably wipe those lands clear and kill all of those planeswalkers. But the big one for me is that Jace is not in the right frame of mind to use the Sylex. He considers the battle already lost, and he is acting out of spite. He says in the story he wants to be the one to take the multiverse away from the Phyrexians. How will the Silex interpret his dying wish? Probably by taking the multiverse away from everyone, by clearing away everything it can as its energies ripple outward through the branches of Realmbreaker. When Urza used the Sylex, he did it defensively, and he was already remorseful before he even set it off, and the landscape that remained after mirrored his own demeanor. But Jace is in a different emotional place and trying to use the Sylex offensively as a form of punishment, and so I suspect that will result in a different magnitude of damage. And let's not forget, Jace just wasted a ton of time diverting the strike team to try and rescue Vraska. I think we can all agree that was a bad decision. So how can we trust him to make the right decision with the Sylex? I can't be too mad at him, though, because I probably would have made the same choice, really. Anyway, the story cannot express all of these ideas in the limited time it has. That's why I try to place myself into the shoes of each character and understand why they would act the way they did. We've got to read between the lines a bit. Literally. To me, Kaya and Kaito's hesitancy to continue with the Silex plan makes sense. They don't have permission from everyone in the multiverse to roll the dice on their respective planes, and they know other answers might still be out there somewhere. They just need time to find them. Jace's desire to go ahead with the Sylex makes less sense to me, but I still get it. He's dead either way, and he wants to deny the Phyrexians as much of the multiverse as he can, the same way they robbed him of time with Vraska and a peaceful existence with his other friends. We could argue for days about who was right, but ultimately, it was another party who made the decision for everyone, and that's Elspeth. In the story, she enters the room as Jace and Kaya are mid-struggle, and she immediately knows what must be done. She grabs the Sylex and vanishes with it, either into the blind eternities or somewhere beyond. The story does not explain how she knows what must be done, so again, we are left to interpret the situation based on our own understanding of the characters. Elspeth is a valiant knight. She has battled Phyrexians before and stood in defense of Mirrodin before. She recently learned her home was New Capenna, and the magic of that plane's angels may be flowing through her body at this very moment. When she saw Kaya and Kaito trying to stop Jace, she had to make a split-second decision. Protect Jace and let him detonate the Sylex, or stop him, and if that's not possible, at least take away his ability to use the artifact. Jace was outnumbered 2-1. Even without hearing the argument, Elspeth could deduce there had been a disagreement, and so now two other planeswalkers were trying to stop Jace. Jace was also in danger of becoming a Phyrexian at any moment. If he had already turned and was still trying to set off the Sylex, then the correct move would be to stop him. There's no way your enemy would be trying to help you, right? So with all of that, we can pick any reason Elspeth decided to stop Jace. Maybe she realized two were more likely to be right than one. Maybe she feared he had already turned. Maybe her angelic purity let her see the situation in a way that us mere humans can't even understand. Elspeth removed the Sylex from the equation. Did she doom the multiverse by allowing the Phyrexians to continue their invasion? Or did she save it by preventing Jace from killing the only people who could actually stop the Phyrexians? Obviously, we'll have to wait for March of the Machine to know for sure, But we have seen at least one card from the next set already, and that's Moment of Truth. The art shows Elspeth standing in a doorway atop a long, winding path, and the flavor text tells us she gets to make a choice, and that the fight will not end without her. So it looks like she survives the explosion of the Silex, wherever that takes place, and now she's in a position to make some sort of decision. Remember earlier when I said the Silex seems to reflect the will of the user? Assuming Elspeth found a safe and isolated place to let the artifact do its thing, maybe the end it brought about was the end of Elspeth's physical form. Maybe it metaphorically wiped the land clear of her weaknesses and failures and remade her as the valiant warrior she needs to be to stop the Phyrexians once and for all. Maybe its power is now a part of her and she just has to decide how she's gonna use it. Box art for March of the Machine shows us Elspeth crackling with energy and clad in vibrant armor, which to me means that she'll be back and more powerful than ever. But what about you? Do you at least understand why Kaya would not want Jace to use the Silex once Realmbreaker had, well, broken the realms? Do you agree with her? Or do you think Jace still made the right call? Let me know down in the comments. Check out my link for Into the AM while you're there, and then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!